Now, it's no secret that I love NASA. In fact, I love all things space related. So much so that I will soon be live streaming major launches, probably starting with the Starship Test Flight 11 over the weekend. So when our local space denier thinks that faking space is no longer working, I feel obliged to take a look and see if he's talking nonsense. Roll the titles. Hello all and welcome along to another episode of Flat Earth Friday with me, Simon Dan. Thanks very much for joining me. Right, on with today's video then, which as you probably know is from Level Earth Observer. He's claiming again that NASA are faking space and apparently it's no longer working. The thing is, will this be like the last 46 times he said this? Only one way to find out, I guess. Here we go.
I think the penny's starting to drop, even for the participants of this space fraud. As these so-called astronauts now and their performances are getting less and less convincing as the general public wakes up to this lie.
The thing is, astronauts have never been more convincing. We've got live 4K video from the ISS, constant radio contact, HD footage of launches from multiple independent people, and even amateur astronomers tracking this International Space Station as it passes overhead. The only people who think the performances are getting worse are people like you, Level Earth Observer, and all your fanboys in the comments.
Putting aside all the misrepresentations, the straw man, the maps, the models that have been created out there just to be attacked, putting aside all that nonsense, putting aside all the shady characters that accompany that, stripping this subject bare and simply standing by physical demonstrable reality, the general public is starting to cotton on now. And as a result, like I said, the space performances are getting less and less convincing as the penny drops with these so-called astronauts, as the bigger picture of what they're part of. And of course, knowing now that the general public have cottoned on. The game is up.
So he's putting aside all the misrepresentations by immediately misrepresenting everything. That's like saying, I'm putting aside all the lies and then saying a lie. And by the way, this idea you say of the astronauts know the game is up, it's just silly, right? Because nothing screams, I know I've been caught, like continuing to broadcast live experiments and live Q&As and live spacewalks to millions of people. The only performance here is from Level Earth Observer, and he's been doing the same one for years.
I mean, for this to be true, you need a globe Earth. For that to be true, physical demonstrable reality needs to be wrong. It's not, is it? So already we know this is nonsense, because for this to be true they need to be doing ludicrous speeds in freefall around a ball.
Physical demonstrable reality isn't wrong. It's just misunderstood by people who think freefall means falling down. The astronauts are in freefall. They're just moving so fast horizontally that as they fall, the Earth curves away beneath them at the same rate.
No one doubts an observation in the sky. I've seen it myself. But it's obviously not these unconvincing characters on our screen in a space station hurtling around a ball, is it?
I know Jeanette already mentioned kind of some of the difficulties of doing science in space as far as everything floating away from you. And I think when you talk to an average person about science, you know, an image of tubes and beakers and lab coats may come to mind. So aside from those difficulties or maybe with those challenges, what does science look like on the space station? Can you?
I can answer that one for you, young lady. It's not actually science. It's more in the sort of leaning towards performing arts. Different types of performances. But I kind of categorize it ultimately as pantomime. Silly hairstyles, daft costumes, over-the-top performances, unconvincing of course, targeted at a naive, gullible audience and children.
If it's all acting, then we've somehow got thousands of extras. The engineers who design all the payloads, the scientists who analyse the data, the teachers who run projects based on the data, and the amateur radio operators who literally talk to the astronauts live on the ISS. That's a lot of stagehands for one pantomime, as you put it. And as for the silly hairstyles, that's just physics. Hair floats around in microgravity. If LEO ever finds his way onto a parabolic flight, then he'll work that out himself.
I'm surprised the performances were allowed to go on this long, and I'm surprised it took this long for the general public to start waking up to this lie. But that's what all the strawman maps and models and the shady characters are there for.
You keep saying that the general public are waking up to this lie. I've not seen any evidence of that. Just because a few flat earthers agree with you in the comments doesn't mean the whole country does. Dear oh dear.
Talk a little bit about the facilities that you've worked with, kind of how you've worked around some of those challenges.
Yeah, tell us about the science.
Well, I could start, everyone could add things. Being up here is all about zero-G stuff management, and that's...
Hate to break it to you there, bud, but you need a globe Earth for that to be a case and a space station to be hurtling round it to create that environment. You haven't got one of those, have you? Because every air pressure system residing next to a vacuum requires solid separation. So we already know the game's up and you're part of something that's rather naughty, aren't you, mate?
You don't need a solid barrier when you've got gravity. Gravity, as I've said many times, provides a pressure gradient. The air at sea level is dense, and as you move higher, it thins out gradually, until at some point it's indistinguishable from space. There's no wall, just decreasing density. You can even measure the pressure drop yourself with a cheap barometer and a walk up a hill. As for calling astronauts naughty, come on, Level Earth Observer. These are people who have spent years training, risked their lives to expand human knowledge, and you're acting like they're kids caught fibbing about eating the last biscuit.
Goes whether you're exercising or brushing your teeth or eating your food or conducting the experiments we do. And you really have to develop those chops to be successful at any...
We're talking about science, we get stories, and we've already got the performing arts section in the back here up and running. I'm surprised our friend here on the right hasn't got the fuzzy wuzzies going on with the hairspray, but hey.
Notice how Level Earth Observer offers no explanation at all as to how that person is floating in the background. Incredible, isn't it, really?
These, use your imagination. And so that's kind of the lens that we look at all of the science that comes our way. I'll use SpaceX 30 as an example. That was kind of a tidal wave of science when we'd only been up here for a couple of weeks or so. And that, in a way, kind of hit us like a ton of bricks because it was very diverse.
A tidal wave of science that hit you like a ton of bricks. And in a way, it was kind of diverse. Mate, we know this is horseshit before we've even entertained this, but you're making it easy. What makes it even easier now is the fact the general public can see through this now. But where's the demos? Where's the 24-hour live cameras inside the space station in this world of live fly-on-the-wall documentaries? You'd literally get the space nerds salivating top to tail, and it would be fascinating to watch.
So Level Earth Observer wants a 24-hour live stream inside the ISS. Every second, every room. The reason that doesn't exist is the same reason you don't have CCTV inside your own house, Level Earth Observer. Privacy and practicality. The ISS is both a workplace and a home for 6 people, and they're living in close quarters for months on end. NASA already provides regular live tours online, plus educational broadcasts and experimental demonstrations. But the astronauts are entitled to downtime just like anyone else. That said, there are sometimes live interior feeds during downlinks or spacewalk prep, and they're often visible on NASA TV. So it's definitely not that NASA are hiding the inside of the ISS.
The reason we haven't watched that is because all of this is nonsense. You couldn't do your circus tricks in harnesses and use all the other techniques you use 24/7. You wouldn't be able to do it. That's why we just get silly clips like this. And even your target audience is now waking up to this nonsense.
Except they're not, like, at all.
And the techniques you needed for each experiment were very different. And we were doing these for the first time, and some of these experiments were being done for the first time. So your brain is all over the map. You're trying very hard to get it right. You know that these experiments are years and millions of dollars in the making. And you've got a very excited but anxious investigator or payload developer on the other end. And so you're doing your best to use your zero-G chops to make these things work.
By the way, that astronaut is still floating around in the background there, something that Level Earth Observer is totally ignoring.
And you may be working fluid or...
Waffle, 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 blah, blah, blah. Mate, what have you got yourself into?
Combustion or 3D printing or DNA sequencing or metagenomic analysis, and at the end of the day, you're just whooped, but hopefully giddy with success. So that's kind of what I think about when I think about that science search. There's nothing better than having a really excited investigator on the other end who's really happy with what you've done. But we work pretty hard to make that happen.
You certainly waffled very hard, told plenty of stories, didn't really get much real science as such. But your faces kind of gave it away, and you're trying to reconfirm your stories of zero G, and your mate in the background there going into circus mode as soon as you talked about science, but we didn't really get any real science. We just got circus tricks. Unconvincing ones.
He literally said combustion, 3D printing, DNA analysis, and metagenomic analysis. Or did you ignore that part, Elio?
As like I said, the penny is starting to drop. Maybe like a ton of bricks in a non-weightless environment. The one you're in. Dear oh dear.
Every single thing that he's mocking as circus tricks is a scientific demonstration. When astronauts show how fluids behave in zero G. Now that's not clowning around at all. It's literally studying fluid dynamics without gravity-driven convection. When they spin tools or play with gyros or grow crystals, that's material science. And biology and physics, you know, science. As for their faces gave it away, what do you mean? They smiled? Yeah, imagine enjoying your job conducting science experiments in space. Shocking. And that, would you believe, is Elio's entire video. Amazing he accuses that astronaut of waffling when that's pretty much what he did for his entire video. Dear oh dear, indeed. So let's wrap this one up then, shall we? Please do let me know in the comments below what you thought of this video from Level Earth Observer. As I say, we're all done and dusted for another one. Thank you very much for watching today. It's very much appreciated. If you enjoyed it, please do consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the thumbs up button too. I've been Simon Dan. Have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow for a Saturday session where I'll be taking a NASA astronaut aptitude test. Oh dear. See you then.